Welcome to the Tone Jerks podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gower. With me today, we got
Wil Lopez.
Will. He's a local guitar player, friend. He in a bunch of bands, right? Fairplay,
a lot of The Naked Eye.
Yeah. And then you're doing session work and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah.
So this is a long time coming. We've talked
We've talked about this for quite a bit.
Yeah, for I don't know, probably like over a year maybe, and then
probably over 2 years. I met you when I was still filling in with the Rough.
Okay, yeah, and then
So that was like in 2019.
Yeah, and then 2020 happened, and then so now we're here.
Now we're here.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get into the some of your background and stuff like that. But what's new with you? I guess it's like everything. So
Well,
but yeah, what's new? In
the
your
whole
week?
reason why I'm here is because I asked you if I could borrow your HX Stomp. So because of that, I'm playing the Wonder Bus with the Naked Eye on Saturday. So pretty stoked on that.
Yeah, and so the Wonder Bus, I guess, is something in San Diego that it's like a traveling kind of
it's
rooftop.
It's like
concert.
those British double-decker buses that just drive around town, and somebody had the brilliant idea. Hey, let's put a band up there.
Yeah,
why not? It's moving. So what if it overturns? They're fine.
Yeah, to go around that corner too fast.
Yeah, we'll be. Yeah. I think we're gonna be going around Cardiff or Encinitas this weekend. So if you're in that area.
Yeah,
it depends on when this comes out. We may have already
it's probably gonna come. It's gonna come out next Tuesday.
Yeah, so we've already done it, and it was great.
It was fucking great. It was fucking killer. Nice. Yeah. So you got that coming up.
Yeah.
And have you ever played one of those like modeling units or like
modeling units?
Yeah, like the
no,
Helix or Fractal or anything like that.
But yes, I have. But in a live situation like Wonder Bus, no, it's mainly been like strictly recording. Okay. I know Adam Sisko likes to use his Kemper a lot.
Okay.
Same with Sean Tolley.
Yeah.
Of Clarity.
Yeah. So a couple local guys here.
Yeah, they like to use their Kempers a lot.
It's easy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I will admit, so much easier.
I will admit, it is very easy to just get a tone and then just go for it.
Yeah, and it's like that's what we're doing with Just In Case. This whole album, we're like the song that we did before, like we did a single. True to this, and we used the Fractal, and then I recorded a DI, so in case we wanted to reamp with like an actual amp, and we just
never got around to it.
No, we never wanted.
It was just good enough that we were like, you know what, screw it. Just
and then Adam was and he still is like an amp guy. He's like, I love the sound of like a loud half stack tube, but it actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I hate to admit it too. Like, I fooled my bandmates when I first showed them a song that I used first. And they were like, oh, but you used the real amp for this one, right? They're like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, we used the Kemper for this. And you're like, oh, well, it sounds great.
Yeah. And it's kind of get to a point. But it is a difference like playing without an amp.
Yeah. I've never done it. So that's why I think I'm going to just rent out a spot at Rock and Roll and just plug it through the PA and just to feel it.
Yeah. And then like having just playing with like even just going to the way of like in-ears to where it's like you can't even
in-ears I'm used to. It's just having the amp behind me like without
no sound,
with no air pushing through my legs. That's gonna feel weird.
Yeah, I think we've now been practicing only with in-ears, so direct only. And
okay.
It's good. At first, like I think you'll quickly find there's no transition. Because you're like, cool, I can hear everything. It's fine. It's good. And then, but what you're going to miss is probably some of the amp dynamics or how.
I think that's mainly the only thing that's going to be I'm worried about because like the amp and guitar have such a need to have a good relationship. Yeah. For me personally, but and I'm so used to that. So really, I just want to get a day to get used to it, so I don't go up there like a total rookie and be like, "Hey, this doesn't feel right."
Yeah. Or be like complaining a bunch of like, why can't I bring my real? And it's like, you gotta go.
Oh, that was me the first day we found out. I immediately went, no amps, blech.
Yeah.
Blech.
And then I'm not too familiar with Naked Eye. Is it like a loud rock band? Is it
well, I mean, we're loud, but we're definitely not like what Fairplay or the Rough was.
Yeah, okay.
It's definitely more like an R&B funk rock.
That's what. Okay, I think I saw clips. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's very different than what I usually do, but it's also fun. So
yeah. So for that band, you're still using Marshall half stack or quarter stack.
But I definitely quarter stack.
The quarter stack.
Yeah, I definitely use my my JCM 2000, but I have it set towards the green channel where it's a little bit cleaner and a little bit more
like crunchy.
Yeah, a little bit more crunchy, and I just have my PRS just kind of play with the volumes and whatnot.
Okay, yeah.
And I definitely set it a lot brighter too. a little bit more percussive. In contrast to Fairplay, which is a lot more gain and just darker sounding.
Yeah, a lot more of a your classic rock setup. So it's like your
a little bit
Les Paul to a Marshall.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like classic rock. I mean, like your classic rock and roll setup.
Yeah, the typical plug a Les Paul into the Marshall and just let it rip.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. I think. Yeah. I mean, you're not too opposed to like that, like the idea of modelers. Whatever.
I think nowadays, if you're still like, oh, I need my amp now, and you're not flexible, I mean, you're just gonna dig yourself into a hole even deeper and just not get anywhere.
Yeah, and you're like, that's the biggest thing. It's like flexibility. And I think most people like who are in bands and want to create music, or it's like it's actually not that big a deal. If you're like, I'm only
the technology is getting really good. So I hate to admit it, but it is.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So for my what's new this week, actually, it has to do with recording as well. So I'm recording. We're recording the new EP for Just In Case, and so we're onto like guitars and bass, drums we got done, and
that's usually where they go to.
Yeah,
like, drums always got to go first.
Yeah, and then he recorded to a click, but with scratch tracks, and now like Adam went back and did all the guitars. Okay. And he did a really good job.
So you are doing it with Adam Cisco.
Sorry, Adam from Just In Case.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he recorded it and he did a really good job. He's like, I'm like, we kind of decided to do things a little different instead of using like humbuckers, used the P90.
Right.
It's more like raw sounding. It's pretty cool because it's like you can hear the buzz, and instead of like, oh no, we got to be like super silent and quiet. Then I'm like, no, it's
fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
These songs are coming together, and so I'm like, okay, I got to do bass. And then I went to go, get set up, and I'm like, oh, I can probably knock this out in like a day, right? I'm like confident. I'm like, oh yeah, I can fucking do it.
It's always like that, and then once you do it, you're just like, oh no.
Well,
I don't know if that's the case for you, but that's usually what it is for me.
Well, there's two things for that. So at first it was the actual setup. So I'm like, cool, you got everything going, put new strings on my bass. And I was last time I was using my jazz bass, which I like the sound of it, but sometimes the P bass just has that different like mid-range sound or whatever,
right?
And you just kind of want to go for that. So I was like, okay, this time I want to try it different because I really like the way my P bass sounds. It's not just like it's a P bass,
yeah,
right.
And everyone's got one. It has used one at some point.
Yeah, and they just work out. So I was like, got it strung up, got ready to go, and then I went to plug in. I'm doing a DI track, but also using a fractal. So that is my amp sound. And I think we're keeping, because that worked out last time, I'm not going to mic a real amp. I know, sorry.
It's okay. And I think for bass, though, like DI is the way to go.
Yeah. And so got that all set up, got, the cables and everything going. And it's like the way, like my little rack set up here is like, it's kind of looks messy, but there's some method behind the madness. Right. And I'm like, cool, it's good to go. Turn on the the computer and everything, got that set up, and I just hear this bzzz,
oh no,
and I am like,
what's happening?
Yeah, and I'm getting it from like a little bit from the DI. I was like,
oh no,
and then I'm like,
that would drive me nuts. I'm just like, crap.
And I'm like, I can't record that, and I'm like, let me change things, and like, oh, maybe it's like I have too much gain because I like having a lot of gain on bass,
right?
And Brian, our drummer, was like, maybe hold off on that this time. It's like, and
maybe get a little bit of a cleaner bass sound.
Yeah, Adam was like, yeah, maybe
and they're like, fine.
And I like it like kind of like a metal bass player would.
So like on a scale from 1 to Lemmy, how distorted is your bass tone?
It's distorted. I like it distorted, but in a different way.
Okay.
So he was kind of more like through a Marshall and stuff like that. This, I like it sound like it's like a dark glass kind of sound. So that kind of deal. Where it's
I see. Yeah.
More,
okay.
Like more modern.
Okay.
It's like I can't remember who it was. It was like Architects.
Okay, so I disagree with your bandmates. You should use that a lot more.
And so I'm like, no, he's like, it's a little harder to mix. And stuff like that.
No, I get that.
And then sound that they're going for, but no, it's fine. I think. Maybe when we play live, I might just like have it. I'm like, oh, during sound check, not have the distortion on, and then when we play, kick it on. But so anyways, I'm like, okay, so I'm changing things on the fractal. I'm changing this. I'm like, I still get that, and it's really low, and I can even see it on like the meter for the on my Apollo there.
Right.
I'm like, I can see it. I'm like visually, I'm like, I can't fucking hide that. Like that sounds like shit. Right. And I'm like, that shouldn't be like that. I mean, then I'm like, I spent too much fucking money on that fucking Apollo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm like, maybe it's this. Maybe it's a Thunderbolt cable.
I think that's the biggest problem with all this stuff is like, it's the smallest thing. And honestly, you won't be able to find it unless you like start going through the list, be like, break this down, break that down, break this down. And I had that problem with my pedal board the other day.
It's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I went through everything. I hardware reset on my interface. I new firmware, restarted the computer, disconnected and checked the fractal, like to make sure that it wasn't something on there, and then make sure on the presets. I'm like, is there a noise gate? There is, but it's still there. And I'm going back and forth, and I disconnected. I'm like, maybe it's a cable. So I disconnected all the cables. It could be. I'm like, it's coming out of the headphones still. It's not the speakers, but maybe it could be. And so
it's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm like hours into it until I was like, you know what? Let's
switch bases to see what happens.
Exactly. And I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I was so like kind of pissed that I wasted the time for it. And then kind of like, well, now my bass, there's something wrong with it. And I'm like, I don't have strings now because I'm like, I had, my extra pair that I was like, oh, I'm just going to put it on the bass. I don't have to even go to the store to buy strings. No. And then I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I had to put everything back together. I had to go to Guitar Center. That's always fun. Yeah, and then to buy bass strings. And I'm like, I was so pissed. I was so like.
That was a long day.
Well, it was just like hours. Yeah. Hours I wasted. And I got nowhere. Then to finally get started to record the bass.
You're exhausted at that point.
I was in such a mental, like I was like, I'm like, my whole thing's broken. I got to send this in, because like I had problems with the HX Stomp and that whole debacle and and then even my Focusrite. I'm like, all these companies keep fucking up. And I was like, of course it'd be me. And I'm like, spiraling down. Right. And I'm like, oh, it's the bass. Which I'm like, that sucks. Because now I'm like,
now you got to figure out what on the bass is going on.
So there's like, either it's a bad pot in there, or
you don't run active, do you?
I don't. No. Okay. It's just I have similar setup to my Equits. It's just the volume and on off. So okay. It could be something with one of those, or Kyle was saying. I texted him. He's like, oh, there could be like a dry air solder spot or something like that. So you can try running it again. I'm like, I don't have a fucking soldering iron. I have one. But it was like some cheap Weber one.
Right.
I think that was the brand. And I was like, oh, cool. Let me see if this works. It doesn't get hot enough to melt solder. I'm like, what the hell's the point of this? It's like, well, I guess this is going in the fucking garbage.
Right.
So I either got to go buy another one, but I might just take it in to repair shop. I'm like, there's noise in here. Figure it out. So
yeah, I had that problem with my PBs like a year ago too. I was just making some demos and it had that same problem. And at that point, I think I just said, you know what? I was going to replace the pots anyway. So I just bought some pots and just took it somewhere and they just redid it.
Yeah. So it could be, and then I'm like, oh, I'll take it apart and be able to find.
See, I never do that.
I looked at it. I'm like, yep. I was like, there has to be like a loose wire somewhere. I'm like, no, everything's still connected. Yep. Put that back together.
See, whenever I do that, I usually screw it up. I don't know how.
Yeah.
But then it always ends up going back to the shop anyway. So I'm just like, you know what? Let's just skip that step and just take it to a professional who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And so I got the new strings on my jazz bass and started recording bass.
Nice.
And some of these songs are tough. Do you ever have like a song that you're practicing and have played live?
Oh, absolutely.
And then you're like, oh yeah. And then you go to record it and you're like, wow, there's a part in there that I've been missing this whole time. And I'm like, I didn't know it did. Like,
yeah, there's one that in Fairplay right now that we just wrote. Well, we didn't just write it, but we've had it in the back burner, and I'm dreading it when it comes to time to record it. Because even live for me, I have to like zen out, and it's hard to do because your energy is like so ramped up, and you just want to like keep running around and just keep rocking out as hard as you can. But like this one, I got to like calm down a bit and just focus for a bit.
Yeah.
That one I'm dreading.
There's this one that I was like, oh, we play it all the time and just jam to it. I'm like, it's super easy. And then there's like this part where it goes, I'm like, it's like, I can visualize it, but I couldn't. I'm like, why? It was so hard to play. It was like, goes G for 3/8 notes, like A for 3/8 notes, and then like B for 2/8 notes, and then 4 staccato quarters. I'm like, why can't I jam this? I'm like, I'm like, I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, because at practice, I'm like, I always just miss maybe like one of the eighth notes, and then I just jump in on the fourth. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like,
live you can get away with it, but once you record, you got to be tight on
exactly.
that.
And it was like, wow, that one was harder than it should have been. And there was like this little part in the song that they added at the end, like, Adam and Brian, they were like, oh, okay, let's just add it. And we recorded it. I'm like, well, we never played that live, but I can figure it out. And I didn't know what notes they were playing. I was trying to I'm like, and he was playing ended it on this like weird, like, it's actually drop D, but this weird E chord. Like, and I'm like, that sounds so weird with any of these notes that I'm playing. And I had to text him. I'm like, what are the notes?
So what did you play?
And he's like, oh, okay, it's this. And he told me something wrong. And I'm like, okay, I recorded it. He's like, actually, it's that. Sorry. And I'm like, you just told me the wrong fucking thing.
Right. It's like, I already recorded all the parts, man. This would have been useful like hours ago.
But luckily, I mean, I'm doing the sessions, so it's not like I'm like, oh, I paid for studio time or something like that. But
that's one of the great spots about doing a DIY. So you have control over that.
Yeah. So I'm, not too, it's like, I want to be as perfect as possible because it's like, there's the stigma of doing like a DIY recording that I don't want. Because everybody's just like, well, it's going to sound like shit. I'm like, no, you can actually make it sound pretty good.
Yeah, you can. There are some DIY records out there that are pretty fucking amazing.
And then even just like people who, having home studios and even studios out of their home.
Again, going back to what we were talking about with modelers, the technology is getting really, really, really good.
Yeah, with outboard gear and all the stuff like that, you might not actually need it. But, I'm stoked the way it's coming out so far.
Oh, that's good. I
can't
wait to hear
it's just like a couple of the hiccups along the way. For bass,
it'll be worth it in the end.
I think for bass, you could either make it a thing where it's like, oh, make it. Who fucking cares? Just tuck it away. Or I'm like, I still care about playing the instrument.
Yeah, no. Because you should care.
And just in case, like that's at the moment, that's all I do. I'm saying I don't do anything. I'm like, I need to play bass. So like, I need to show up.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay. And then it was just two things in the way. I'm glad that it was like not something wrong with my interface.
Yeah, thank God.
That would have sucked.
Yeah, that's the really expensive part. What is it? Apollo Thunderbolt?
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm like, or, it's probably still under warranty, but still, it's like, I don't want to be without it.
Right.
But yeah, so that was it. And then kind of like now when you're under a microscope recording, I'm like, oh God, these things.
100%.
I'm like, oh, you got to match with the kick and the rhythm, like everything. I'm like, okay, duck.
Yeah, because that's one of those things you're not really thinking about live. You're just like, I'll just play the part. And
it's like you hit the note, and sometimes if you hit the one with the kick drum, you're like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, there you go. As long as you land on those downbeats, you're fine.
And then
when it comes to recording and you can hear everything, like using the microscope analogy again, you're just like, okay, you got to be here.
You could always go and fix it and nudge things around.
Yeah, but
you don't want to rely on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing too. I was like, I want to get it as tight as I can before. If any editing has to be done, it's just like minuscule.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way to make it like a real, like sounding recording in like a digital age, because you can always just cheat. And like sometimes like you don't even have to play the instruments,
right? But and they are bass MIDI now, so bass players are getting replaced.
Yeah, just
kidding.
We've talked about that before. I hate that idea. It's just like I'm like, just play
too.
Just play the fucking bass. I'm like, even if your bass needs repair, get it repaired and play it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't see the point of it.
Yeah, and then they even have like
drums. I understand because drums are hard to record unless you have a really good electric kit.
Yeah, and I would be hard pressed.
I would still record real drums, but like if I was in a pinch.
Like even like how a lot of bands do record of like, I know just watching like, back in like you would watch like the old documentaries of like, Angels and Airwaves and stuff like that. Like they're, old, 2005.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Which it is.
Tell me about
it. They're talking about, they recorded the whole thing to like easy drummer, MIDI drummer type thing. And then the drummer went back and actually played it. So he's playing to the song's already done.
Right.
And then he's playing to that, which is
a cool idea.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, which I mean that happens a lot where people are recording to MIDI, and then so you're playing to a pretty much perfect performance on drums, and then you go back and do the real drums. So he at least has the feel of the whole band. Right. Even playing to a scratch, you'd be like, I fucked up. Who cares? Right. And so you're playing to the mistakes. I'm like, I kind of got off the metronome there. Good, you're messing up the drummer.
You're
now.
Messing up everything up.
So yeah, I mean there is merit into doing like recording to drums, and then but I would, if I was putting out a record or whatever, and song or whatever with a band, I would.
That's how old we are. We still say records.
I would still want like an actual drummer.
Oh yeah, no, 1,000%. Like I would want my guy on my song.
And even if you like say like, oh, I don't have a drummer solo, I'm like, then you would probably have a friend play it.
Yeah. I mean, like you'd hire somebody to record drums.
Yeah,
I feel.
Okay, so I guess we had some topics to do, but I kind of want to intro you and kind of like, who is Wil to like some of the people? Because I'm like, oh, I know you, but I'm like, some of the listeners might not. So we mentioned before, you're a guitar player, San Diego. You have a band. You're kind of do some session work as well.
Not so much recently, but like,
or you filled in for a band, or that one that you're now playing in, right? Or is that kind of like?
So are you referring to the Naked Eye?
Yeah. Or was it studio you were doing with Sean, right?
Yes. So essentially what happened
Brian,
was...
you're fucking up the whole story. Let me tell you. Stop you right there.
So eventually what happened was like they've actually been after me for quite a while.
Oh, okay.
So they've asked me several times.
Yeah.
They've actually asked me a couple of times, and I've said no because, it just wasn't my thing at the time. And I was like working 2 jobs, playing in several other bands.
You're going to school.
Doing all that stuff. I didn't have time for another band. So, and then the pandemic hit. So their 2 guitar players eventually moved on from the Naked Eye. Mm-hmm. So Dakota and I, the singer, went back and forth. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Why not? I'll play with you. And we've kind of had a mutual respect for each other over the years that we've known each other. So I was just like, you know what? I'll do it.
Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And then they were in the middle of recording their album, I think. They Got Thomas, the most recent one. And I only got to play on Caution and While I'm Young.
Okay, yeah.
So those are the only 2 songs that feature me. So everything else is Gunner, their previous guitar player, and TJ, their previous guitar player.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so you kind of got into it while they were recording.
Mm-hmm,
got it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, maybe that's what I thought of, like, oh, he's a hired gunner.
Oh, no.
That'd be cool to do, right?
Now I'm a full-fledged member.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so you're, definitely a rock guy.
Yes, rock is like my thing.
And I think we kind of I kind of brushed over it before, but your setup and your rig is very rock and roll.
Yeah, it's very Slash. It's very Slash.
Would you say Slash is kind of the one, the main?
Oh yeah,
influences?
that's the dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And like my first real Gibson was a '94 classic gold top.
Oh, damn.
And I wanted that one specifically because it looked like the one he had from the 1990. I'm not sure if it's 92 or 91 Tokyo Guns N' Roses live shows.
Okay. Yeah.
So he had a gold top, and I'm just like, I want that.
Yeah.
So I found one for like $1,000 on Craigslist. And I'm just like,
I want it. That's not a bad.
Yeah,
deal.
but it had a broken headstock that was repaired pretty crappily.
Okay. Yeah.
So for the $1,000, I'm like, you know what? I'll repair it. I'll take it to get repaired. So it's
okay.
worth the money.
Yeah. So.
And I still play it to this day, and I beat the living crap out of it. So.
It's kind of like when it's already got like some damage, you're kind of like, all right, it's not too precious.
Pretty much all of my Gibsons are like that, except my Junior. That one I got for free.
Okay, yeah.
I won it at a raffle. Do you remember Guitar Trader?
Yeah.
So they
had the one in Claremont. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They had a Gibson Clinic one year. So Gibson guitars showed up, and they kind of do the whole spiel. Here's how we make our guitars.
Yeah.
Here's some body, so you guys can take a look at the weight relief and what we do. No one likes weight relief. Get rid of that.
Yeah.
But they had a raffle for a 2011 Gibson Les Paul Jr.
Yeah.
So I put my name in, not thinking any of it.
Just because
I'm just
here,
like, fuck it. Yeah. And then towards the end, they're like, hey, Wil, you want any free guitar? I'm like, I did.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess I came home with a new guitar.
That's awesome. Damn.
Yeah. So that's actually, if you listen to Fairplay's opening EP, Broken Seams.
Yeah.
If you listen to Detour, that Junior is all over that track.
Okay. Yeah. And that's just keep it stock with a P90.
Yeah. Kept it stock. Just kept it stock.
Yeah. So, let's see. Definitely a Gibson guy.
Yep.
Right?
I've got about 4 Les Pauls. Probably maybe 5.
Are you only Les Paul? Do you have SGs and Explorers and stuff like that?
Well, Gibson wise, yeah, I only have Les Pauls. I thought about 335s, but the way I play, I would just break them in half.
You're like, it wouldn't last.
It would not last.
Yeah.
I have a Strat. I have a Telly. I have a PRS semi-hollow, which is taking place at the 335.
What you would get out of that? Yeah.
Yeah. And what else have I got? Those are the main ones. So I got a classic Les Paul, a standard Les Paul, a Les Paul Custom 73, which is over here to our left. 72 Custom Telly, so kind of like how Keith Richards has his.
Okay.
So like that black with the humbucker on top.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I really like that setup. PRS, Strat, Did I mention Strat already? Yeah, I think.
Is it just like kind of a standard Strat?
It's a road orange Strat.
Okay, yeah.
So like the kind of how like your jazz,
yeah.
In that color that your Jazz Master is in.
Yeah, so kind of like that
white with the mint green card.
Yeah,
and it's
awesome.
by far my favorite Strat that I've ever played.
Yeah,
and I found it for like $400. I'm just like,
oh,
mine.
Shit. Yeah, you can't fucking beat that with
Yeah, no, I called the dude that day. I'm just like, hey, I'm not busy right now. I'll come get it.
It's like a Craigslist kind of find.
Yeah. I will find it. I will come get it.
I feel like I haven't seen jack shit on Craigslist now.
Dude, it's the same shit every day.
It's like I don't know, the well has dried up on that. Because maybe because everybody's going to Reverb. But like, are people
what it is.
selling a lot of guitars on Reverb? I would be very hesitant. I've never shipped a guitar.
Oh, dude,
I've done it once actually. I did it once and I wrapped the hell out of it, and it cost so much.
The closest I've done to that scale is I shipped my JCM 800 to get repaired.
Yeah,
that was expensive.
I did ship.
But I've never shipped a guitar.
Yeah, I think I shipped an amp, and I overpriced it. I quoted the shipping on Reverb just because I couldn't sell it locally.
Right.
And luckily, I insured it, did all the stuff, had signature required, all the stuff that you had to. And it arrived there safe, and the guy was stoked on it. But I wrapped the ever-loving shit out of it. So it's tons.
Especially with amps.
Yeah.
Especially tube amps, too.
So
you want to take care of those puppies.
Yeah. At my work, it kind of we ship a lot of furniture and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And so I used all the fucking styrofoam corners, foam corners.
So I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. So I wrapped the hell out of it because I'm like, I do not want to get this thing returned. And so I think I quoted like 175, 180 for shipping, and it actually only ended up being like 75 or $100. I'm like, so I guess I unintentionally made money on the shipping, but I'm like, yeah.
But you want to make sure it's okay. That's the thing.
And I'm like,
I'd rather be safe than sorry.
It's kind of weird. I'm like, when does I don't know how they plan for shipping, whatever. Anyways, ended up going there, but I was shitting bricks. I got that money and I didn't spend it until.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm kind of the same way. I'm even like that with like little pedals.
Yeah,
I don't want that stuff to come back at me. I'm just like, please be there, okay?
Please get there, okay. And then I won't move or spend the money until I get the 5-star review.
Yeah, right.
And I've just known. I'm like, I just don't like to do it. But people maybe are going that way, or eBay, and just
it kind of seems like it's going that way.
And I was thinking maybe they went to OfferUp, but OfferUp is just bullshit. There's nothing over there either.
I mean, I've had some good luck on OfferUp. I bought one of my Taylors on OfferUp, which was a smoking deal.
Okay.
I bought a 114 CE.
Yeah.
On there, so it's like one of the lower ends, but it's a Taylor, so you can't go wrong with it. With a hard shell case.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right spaces.
Speaking of OfferUp, so sometimes you do find golden deals. I found my JCM 2000 50-watt British made.
Oh, that's
yeah. For $250.
It's probably hot.
It was from a pawn shop, so it probably was. Who knows? But I got there and the guy was like, yeah, it makes this noise. We don't know what's wrong with it. We think it's broken. It was literally just a bad preamp tube, so you can just pop that out and put it back in.
Okay, nice, yeah. Or some people think they hear the rattling.
But I didn't tell them that, so I'm like, yeah, dude, it's broken, but I'll just take it as is.
Yeah. I'll use it for parts.
I'll just use it for parts. It's fine. And it's just happens to be one of my main gigging amps right now.
Yeah. Or
because it's light.
Yeah, I think I've heard that of the JCM 2000s, the 50-watt is...
Oh, dude, I love that thing.
Yeah, the 2-channel 50-watt is it's one
super versatile.
So I had a 100-watt one, and I liked it a lot. And then
I think that's the DSL 100 is like everyone's first big boy amp.
Yeah, because that was
they're readily available and they're relatively cheap.
Because they came out again with the DSL 100s, but yeah, mine was the JCM 2000 100-watt. I really dug it. I think I've had this thing where I've been trying to go... I'm trying to be a Marshall guy.
But you're an orange guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was Mesa too, but something with... I've owned
Mesas are loud.
3 or 4.
Yeah. Mesas are loud.
Marshalls, but I've never had an 800. People are like, that's the one you got to get. I'm like,
I love my 800.
I'd
have to let you play it one of these days.
Yeah.
It's getting repaired right now for the 5th time, but...
You're pushing it too hard, man.
Clearly.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So you got the guitars mainly Les Pauls, but you got some other ones in the stable there. But Marshalls. So I think you own only Marshalls, right? It's from your Instagram, I see.
It's
the 50.
Yeah, I got the 50 JCM 2000.
Yeah.
I got a JCM 800 2203 reissue, and the newest one is not really new, but the SV20. So
that's the studio one.
The studio vintage.
Studio vintage SV.
So it's basically the Plexi.
Yeah.
I love that thing.
And that thing, yeah, and they're
it cranks.
They're 20 watts, but they're also still made in the UK. So
yeah, made in the UK. They're not the Chinese bullshit.
Yeah, because they did come out with the DSLs that are Chinese made ones.
Yeah, I steer away from those.
I heard those are good, but
they're good if you look. I hate to say when I say that, I mean they're good amps. If that's what you can afford and you can make it sound good, then go for it.
And I'm snooty in the same way of like, well, I mean these are the Chinese made orange.
Yeah,
I'm like I got the UK made. I'm like, does it make a difference? No, but it's still
the audience will never know.
Little piece of pride there.
Yeah, the audience will never know. But I'm weird. I don't know if you're like this too, but like if it's not the exact thing that I want, I will still go. Even if I get something that's like it, I will still go after the other thing that I want.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to settle, even though you're not settling for anything.
Yeah,
in your it's just kind of in your own head.
Yeah, it's pretty much just your ego.
Yeah, it's like you're the only one that's like gonna know. But still, I had a buddy. I think he was like that with he always had he was a Tom DeLonge guy.
Okay.
Everybody San Diego Tom DeLonge guy, right?
Jesus Christ!
And then he had an Epiphone 333. Like the signature one.
Okay.
Yeah, the hollow body deal. It's like, but it was an Epiphone. He's like, it was fine because I'm like, what am I? It was like. But he's like, I knew there was the real Gibson ones out there. They didn't make a lot of them, but he's like, I knew they had them out there.
They're ridiculously overpriced now.
He got them when it wasn't too bad, but still like $2,000 something.
Oh, dude, that's not bad.
So he got it.
Okay.
And he's like, I knew there was the real one. So he got it and he loved it. And he never really played it. But he, and he sold it, I think, for really good. Because he's like, I couldn't not.
If you look those up on Reverb now, they're like ridiculously dragged up on price.
Yeah. I never asked him how much he sold it for, but he's like, he's probably like, I made good money, and he's like, that's how I got into photography. Because I was able to just sell that and just
bought my entire kit.
Yeah, exactly. Pay some bills, save some money, and then just still buy a camera. And I'm like, cool. So I'm like, hey, but it was just that idea that he was like, I knew there's the better one out there. But anyways, yeah. So the Marshall guy, and then usually a 2x12 kind of Marshall cab.
Yeah. I thought about for the longest time going 412 again because I had one for the longest time, but just I'm thinking about the backaches. And I'm just thinking about the backaches. I'm just like, nope, not going there.
And the Marshall ones aren't too big either. So
they're not. They're definitely not the Mesa oversized ones.
Yeah,
and they're not as heavy as oranges.
Yeah, no, the oranges are.
I think an orange 212 is as heavy as a Marshall 412.
And there's no wheels either.
That's true.
There's no wheels.
Some Marshalls don't have wheels.
Yeah.
You can't get those put on there. When I bought my 212, it didn't have wheels.
Oh, really?
So I had to go to my hardware store and go get wheels.
It's like, I'm putting them on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I had to go back 3 times because I got the wrong one.
Oh.
So I'm like, wait, this one doesn't fit. And I went back and forth, and the lady was like, are you okay? I'm like, just don't worry about it.
Like, I probably should have just brought my cab into Home Depot, and it would have been easier.
No. Screw that.
But yeah,
I probably would have gotten a couple of people like, dude, what kind of speakers are in there, man?
Yo, dude.
I'm just like, don't worry about it.
Actually, what kind of speakers are in your cab?
Oh boy, here we go. So how do you feel about G1275s?
They're fine.
That's what I got.
They're like kind of some of the shittiest speakers, right? Because it's like V30s kind of.
Everyone likes the V30s and everyone likes the greenbacks, but I'm not like
the blues.
Blues for Voxes and matchless and whatnot. But like my rig's kind of like based off of this. If I can only take my guitar and pedalboard, what's available?
Yeah,
it's usually a JCM 2000 and a Marshall 412 with the G1275.
Exactly. That's what I do like those, because we used to share a spot with Sean Tolley. Clarity Recordings, and he has nothing but just the 1960A cab.
Just the stock cabs.
Yeah. So whatever the GT75s, because he sees those and just buys them. I'm like, dude, why do you have like 8 of them?
I don't understand.
Well, because he's like, I saw it for like $100, so might as well. I'm like,
okay, where is he finding these cabs?
Yeah.
If it's for $100, I want one.
and then he's like, yeah, no. He's like, well, I'm finding them so cheap, so might as well. I'm like, you can't argue with that.
It's true. If I saw one for $100 too, I'd buy 3 of them.
Well, I was at Guitar Center when I was buying the bass strings. Yeah. They had a SVT 810 made in St. Louis cab for I think $350.
What was wrong with it?
It's just used, and it's an 810. So who wants an 810?
Why is it so cheap? There's got to be something up with it. Was it like screwed up?
Oh, it's beat up for sure.
Okay,
so and that's like that makes it better.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm like, I saw that because I was like, oh yeah, because they did move to being produced in China or Vietnam. I think it's China. And so,
they're owned by Yamaha now.
Yeah. And so they used to be made in St. Louis, and that was Kyle's. All his cabs are made in St. Louis, which is like kind of like, oh, cool,
It's kind of like that pride thing.
Exactly. And not that if they can sound better or whatever. Like I think I played Punch Card. Mike has the SVT, the 410. Sounds fucking great, and it's made in China. I'm like, right. Well, it does not make a difference, but it's just the fact that I'm
like I was saying earlier, the audience is not going to know,
and
as long as you get a good sound out of it.
Exactly. But you can tell like the weight of them is different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, are they different
like
speakers?
Even with the Marshall 412s, like the lower end ones, you can tell.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
They used to make like the HDFX ones, which was like, I was like, oh, I got a Marshall. I'm like, I got an HDFX, bro.
I mean, that's like the gateway, because I had an MG100 when I was growing up.
And even those cabs, I'm like, I wonder if you like got a really cheap cab and put nice speakers in it, if it would make.
Do you know Spectre Sound Studios on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So he's done that. He's gotten a cheap Ampeg cab, like for 412s.
Yeah.
You can find on Craigslist for like $100, $200.
Yeah.
And he put nice speakers in there. And it sounds great.
Yeah. I think there was, I honestly can't remember the guy's name. I think he's a German guy. He's in a metal studio. He was doing like this.
It's not Ola, is it?
No, it's not Ola.
Yes, yeah, the really hyper one, bald.
No, it wasn't not HP. I honestly can't remember. I would have to look it up. But he's got pretty cool videos, and he's kind of like has a home studio, and he was kind of doing the difference between like, which is the best metal cap, clickbait kind of thing. I'm like, I'm gonna click on it.
Yeah.
And then it was a good video.
Was it a super long like video?
No, it was like maybe like 10, 12 minutes or whatever.
The guy I'm thinking of had something like that, but it was like an hour long.
HP, yeah. Or HP 42, whatever. He does it. I'm like, cool videos. I hear that they're great, but I'm like, I'm not gonna be here for an hour. Yeah. Even though I'm there for an hour.
That's one of those videos I put on the background while I'm doing my errands around the house.
I'm like, I'm gonna watch 10 Peter McKinnon videos. Yeah, right. I was on there for an hour.
Dude, Peter, that's another topic we have to get into.
But I know we haven't even gotten to the topics. We're just riffing here. But yeah, I was like, if you can just get a cheap cab, and he was switching between the Mesa V30s, putting into a Marshall cab, and he's like, this is kind of the best setup, because I guess they make or spec their V30s differently for Mesa.
Yeah, I heard that too. I think they spec their greenbacks differently too.
And they're still made, even though Celestion's, they're, a UK thing and Mesa is American, they still like spec them to be like, they need to be made in the UK.
Yeah.
Because I think they did a batch once, like, oh, let's put the Mesas with the, Chinese V30s. And they were like, no.
They're like, no.
Exactly. They replaced
They're
them.
like, no.
And it was like, it's funny, like something that particular, but there was a difference. Actually,
there is quite a difference.
So, anyway, so you're the GT75s, which is a good idea, which I liked with Sean's, is like you're playing just the whatever most people have. You can go to a club, or you're playing like, oh yeah, we're gonna play.
Yeah, if you go to a club and it's like, hey, we're backlining our cab, and it's the stock cab.
Yeah, or it's
cab,
like,
I'm like, cool, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Playing with a bunch of punk bands, and then somebody's got to have a 1960 cab. Yeah, and you're like, it's got to be.
Well, I mean,
you know what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. And then the reason why I bring that up too is because I played House of Blues. I don't know if you've ever been on one of those bills where like they take 10 or 20 local bands for a night, and then each one gets a 20-minute set. Yeah. And they just backline the whatever house gear they got.
Yeah,
it's a like, Marshall cab.
Yeah,
and the G1275.
Yeah, their house stuff is like, oh, a Pacific kit, and then like an Ampeg with a SVT4, and then JCM 2000 412, and then like I think a twin reverb. Yep. So you can tune. I want a twin reverb or a JCM 2000. Like you're like, yeah, okay, Marshall. I'll figure. Well,
I brought my head. I just put it on top of the JCM 2000 and just plugged into the cab.
And you already know how to dial it in because you already played that. And so yeah, that's a good way to go. You're like, oh, could it be better?
Same with my pedals too. It's like I have it set up to where like if one of these break, I can go to the store, grab that, and just go about and back to my gig.
Yeah, what pedals you got? You have minimal setup with pedals.
It's grown bigger.
Okay, yeah, I think I saw you. And you were like
it started
4 or 5,
minimal, and then it just eventually grew. So it's just tuner, Digitech drop tune, full tone Digivibe. The guy's a dick now. Don't ever buy his stuff new. Micro amp, the Slash octave fuzz.
No, you get a little bit of that Slash stank on you.
Then I got the Big Muff on there, and then I have 2 delays. I have a Boss DD3 or DD6, and then my favorite delay out there is an MXR Echoplex.
Okay, yeah.
That's my favorite delay out there.
Yeah, no, that's good.
That's the always on pedal.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Carbon Copy is my favorite. MXR.
Carbon Copies is a good one too.
Yeah, they do something good over there with that. Yeah, so it's none of those are not that there's anything wrong with, but like boutique. There's no boutique stuff.
There's no boutique stuff on there. I thought about it for the longest time, just grabbing a boutique distortion. But I'm like, if that breaks on me, I would need it to send it off to some dude in the shed somewhere in Montana and then wait for years to get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not down for that.
Yeah, there is something to be said, with buying smaller, because it's like they'll probably take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be like, oh yeah,
absolutely.
I've had things where I'm just able to contact the guy and then they'll fix it, or if something is
and if that's your thing, go for it. I think I'm just coming from a practical thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I kind of got a little bit of background on you, and I don't know. I guess I just assumed that you were doing more session work, but we were kind of batting that idea of like, if you're but you have filled in for gigs, so not really session studio guy, but you're session, or like you're like, I saw you.
I have filled in with
like
other
Fishing
bands.
for Chips. You did that. So
that's
they're like
right.
a pop punk band.
I completely forgot about that.
They're like that pop punk ska kind of deal. So it's like completely not rock and roll at all.
Yeah, it's and
then you're doing your kind of R&B funk thing.
Yeah,
it's a
really weird transition, because I was only into rock, and then Jules, who was playing with the Rough at the time, was like, "Hey, do you want to join the Rough?" I'm like, "Not really, because it's pop punk." But But I warmed up to it, and props to that band, because they kind of like formed me into more of the musician I am now.
Okay.
Than if I just was staying in my comfort zone and not doing the pop punk stuff, probably would have been something completely different. They basically taught me how to learn how to play and sing at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, for pop punk, is something you need to do. You need those harmonies.
Yeah, and then having if it's a 3 or 4 piece, you kind of want as many people singing as possible. Yeah. And then the Rough, I'm like, it's a great group of musicians as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when Darren was playing.
Yeah, Darren was playing at the time. Drew they're all really good.
Yeah, that's cool. So you kind of have like jump back and forth to a bunch of different things, and
that's why I have the multiple Marshalls.
Yeah, that's why I need one for every band. I'm like, they kind of have that same sound. I'm like, well, a little different though.
It is a little bit different. I do set it up differently per band.
Yeah, and then so I'm like, okay, so if you're filling in for a project, because for some of these it was just like a one and done kind of deal.
Yeah, it was kind of, the Rough was a little bit more extended. I mean, me and Jules played with them until they found their crew. Yeah. And then kept them going. And then Darren did the same for us in Fairplay, where he kind of played drums for us until we found our dude.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, with like Fishing for Chips. So you saw you had like that gig, and it's like, okay, it's just a one and done kind of deal. Right. So it's like, how do you prep for something like that? It's
for one, I crank their tunes like as much as possible.
So it's just
when it comes to learning their stuff, and then knowing that they're more of a hard rock band, of like, okay, it's going to be of a more gainier sound, more gain. So JCM 2000. I think for that gig I took my standard. Yeah, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into environment wise. Yeah, so that one is a little bit more of a beater. Yeah, so if it gets nicked, I don't care. Yeah, and the pickups are a little bit lower output on that one, so it works well with a higher gain. So like saturated, but then the pickups provide that articulation. Clarity
if you need it. Yeah. You wouldn't want to go like super hot pickup and then you're like, oh, we need to clean up. Like, fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay. And then you're mainly listening, like, and do you like really ask like,
if it's a part I can't figure out, then I'll hit up Danny or Mitch and be like, hey, what are you guys playing there?
Like, do you like ask for like music or tabs or anything?
No, I just tell them what notes are you playing? It was like, what key is this song in?
And then you figure it out. Yeah. Figure out your parts. And then do you like try and play whatever is on the record, or kind of just...
Yeah, I try to get as close as I can.
Okay, yeah.
As close as I can, unless they tell me, no, you need to play exactly
this. Okay, yeah. Because I was like, I think I might be filling in for Hardly Human in an upcoming gig next month. And then I'm like, I could do it. Yeah. And then it might be like, is it the same overconfidence thing that I'm like, oh yeah, I can play those bass parts. Oh, my fucking bass doesn't work.
I definitely fall into that trap sometimes. Where I'm like, oh yeah. And I filled in on bass for a guy named Josh Rosenblum, who's a more John Mayer jazz type thing. Yeah. And that is immediate. At first I said no, because I'm like, that's out of my wheelhouse, dude. I'm like, I love your music, but that's out of my wheelhouse. But he's like, no, you can do it. It's fine. Yeah. He sent me all the... But he sent me sheet music. I haven't read sheet music for bass in a long time. So I'm like, oh boy, I got 2 nights to figure this out. Let's go. So I just literally, on top of just listening to his stuff over and over again, and the dude has like 6 albums out already. Yeah. I'm just like, dude, this is a lot of music.
Is this a fucking, were you playing for hours or what?
Yeah, it was one of those gigs that were like, he does the 3 to 4 hour gigs.
Yeah. Okay.
So where they just riff. So if going back to what I was just saying earlier, like he's one of those guys that will send you a bunch of music, you learn it, but you play like 3% of it.
And then it's kind of just
it's just really just us jamming the
we're just improv.
Time.
Got it.
Be like, yo, do you know All Along the Watchtower? Cool. We'll play that for like 20 minutes.
All right, and then we're just gonna.
So I'm like, all right, this is cool. So the first time I did it, it was fun, and then he called me back. I'm like, yep, down to do it again.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's a little something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I like. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I get all nerdy. I'm like, I need to have my papers, and I just like write it all out.
I definitely should have that, but it just really depends on who you're playing for.
Yeah, I seem to like filled in for like punk bands, punk bands.
Yeah. I doubt they would have sheet music.
And for because then
unless they do, and then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Even better for me.
It's not even sheet music. I just had to write my chord progressions out. I'm
right.
Like even if it's like a slight like variation, I'm like, I have to write it down.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm kind of the same way too.
We'll be at band practice and I'm just staring and like it was like, dude, try and jam with us. And I'm like just reading as I'm playing.
Right.
Like I filled in for Tolly's band, Nothing Sacred. Like they had a couple of gigs where they needed a bass player to fill in, and that was one where I was like, I'm like the way I'm playing sometimes. I'm just like I'm playing, kind of following everybody, and they liked it because they're like, oh man, you're actually pretty, just keep it really basic. I like that. they had a guy who was just like I'm trying to be Matt Freeman up with this bitch, and I'm like nope, just keeping it. And I'm like just straight and narrow. I'm gonna lock in with the drummer, and I was like, it was a buddy Kiyoki. He's
he's great. He plays with Nice Like Thieves right now, right?
Yeah, he was the drummer, and I was just like dead eye, just staring at his kick, and I'm just like locking in. He's like. He's like, Brian, I like it. Brian's locking in, but sometimes he just stares. I'm like, yeah, I forgot that I'm just staring at you. I'm like, and he's like playing. He's like,
yeah, right. He's like, what? Is there something wrong with the kick? Did I break it?
And I'm like, yeah, but no, that was fun. And then to kind of go off with that, it's like you're playing in a bunch of different bands, and you're trying to be like more like, fitting in with different projects. And this is another topic I kind of want to do. It's a kind of loose one of like, okay, setting you up and stuff like that. Do you think you have a signature sound? Like, could you like, okay, like what tone are you going for? What sound are you going for?
Yeah.
If you're like, okay, what's the Wil Lopez one? Would it be like specific gear or sound that you?
I mean, EQ wise on the amp, I'm not really too picky because I forget where I set it. I just kind of like twiddle the knobs until it sounds good. But it's really just the Les Paul through a JCM 800 through a Marshall 412. That's it. That's pretty much it. I can work off of that.
You're like the pedals and stuff like that. You're like, I kind of don't. It's like,
well, pedals wise, just give me a tuner, a delay, and a boost.
Okay,
that's really all I would need.
It's not even like super specific because, like you said, like you don't want those things being attached to you in case
I'm definitely not like
they
Billy
break,
Duffy.
They discontinue them or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not like Billy Duffy. I don't know if you've ever seen his rig, but like it's like a Vox mixed into a Friedman, mixed into a Fender, mixed into a Matchless, and then a spaceship of pedals on top of his Gretsch.
I
if
think
any of those went bad, he would be fucked.
Yeah, that would be.
I don't want to be that dude.
Yeah, I think I like that idea a lot, but I think the more and more I'm playing the gear, and maybe it could be because of the podcast or whatever, I'm trying out different things. I'm kind of like the complete opposite of you. Yeah. Like, you can't buy any of the stuff that I like at a store.
Right.
The pickups and
could be that ego thing we were talking about, that little pride.
Maybe. Well, I mean, and the thing is, I could always play on whatever.
Yeah.
And then if you're just kind of this, if the guitar is set up the way he works for you, like I know I'm heavy-handed, so I've played people who have like maybe just standard strings or even nines. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. What key strings do you play?
I play 10 to 52.
Oh yeah, so you're up there on the low strings. I go through 11 through 48s.
Okay, yeah, that's not too bad,
yeah.
Or too much of a difference. I think on my Jazzmaster it's 11 to 48, and same thing on my Strat.
Yeah, my friend was like, "You play 11 through 48s on everything?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Your hands must hate you." I'm like, "Yeah, they kind of do."
Yeah, it's like maybe also too. It's like having the Evertunes. I would tell people, I'm like, "Oh, if you're gonna try it, maybe do scale like up because the tension is gonna be higher." So even though the Gibsons and the Equits are Gibson scale length, they feel like Strat.
Right.
So it feels like the 25.5. Anyway, so to go along with that too, I love having Evertune. And I know I've talked about it all the time.
Like, you talk about it all the
Evertune,
time.
the Sonic, Crystal Palace. So it's made
I'm
by
gonna have to get one of those pickups.
made by a guy, Mike.
Yeah.
Just one guy. And so you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna go to Guitar Center and buy these.
No.
You can buy them on the website, obviously. And then even like the switching on my is like I have the on-off switch, and like most guitars don't have an off switch because
unless you play Les Paul and you turn off the neck pickup, then you got a kill switch.
And then I mean I don't even use it for the stutter. It just I'm like after a song I like to boop, turn it off, and then I'm like and I'm like everything I have except for maybe strings, and even that I can get particular too.
Right.
I like which is
I'm kind of particular with my strings, but again it goes with the same philosophy. It's just like if I can go to Guitar Center and find my 11 through 48s, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Do you play like Ernie balls or you play
Ernie balls?
Yeah. I can be totally fine with those, but I just get picky because I'm like I like NYXLs.
Okay.
So I feel in my head it could probably be like placebo. It could be like just me thinking I'm like they last longer, they stay newer.
Right.
It's probably bullshit.
Yeah.
It probably could be marketing, but just for me.
Who knows? I can't tell you the last time I broke a string. So surprisingly, with how hard I play, it's just like I don't think I've broken a string.
I think I've thought I would break more by having the 10 to 52s because I used to do 11 to 48, so like the thicker on the smaller strings, and I've only broken this like a high E or something like that once with the 10 52s. I would have thought I'm like I would break these all the time, but like no, I guess I don't. Maybe just my playing technique. I know that I hit the lower ones way harder just with that, but yeah, I mean I know. And then even like oranges, I'm like they're not as common. Like you see at a I think more people would have orange cabs.
Yeah, like definitely orange cabs.
I see those a lot more than I see orange amps.
Yeah, they're expensive. they're quite pricey.
Yeah.
They sound really good though.
But it's like I guess with everything, it's like when you find the deals, like even at Moe's Guitar, they would get some in for super cheap.
I've seen a couple in there too.
I think I got the 80-30 combo that I have for like $700.
Oh wow!
So it's like
nice,
but it's a combo. So if you're not into that, because I know the idea of having a head and cab makes much more sense. I guess if you're trying to play gigs and share rigs, it
really just depends. I'm like I like having more than one speaker, but like I'm not opposed to playing a combo. Yeah, I mean I'm looking to a Vox AC15, AC30 right now, so
that'd be a big jump from Marshall, I would say.
Yeah,
it's even though they're British, they like the combos
they're different.
And stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you could say the same with Orange too.
Yeah,
they're on the same line, but like they have different sounds.
Yeah, and then even though they're British or whatever, but I would say I've gotten myself into that niche sound for gear. Like my sound, like if I had to bring it back to just it's mids on mids on mids on mids. That's
all the mids.
Tube Screamer into like a mid peaked orange. I'm like, I love it. And people are like, that sounds...
you'll cut through.
Yeah. And then like when it's like in the mix, they're like, actually it doesn't sound that bad. I'm like, where's all the, the bass? I'm like,
it's coming from the bass guitar.
Yeah. And the kick drum.
And
fuck, I don't need that. And then highs, I'm like,
well, I mean, like that's kind of how it is in mixing anyway. So you're taking the low end off of your guitars a lot.
Yeah.
So
and then like see those memes of like, oh yeah, we only need to do a little bit of EQ on the snare, and then they have like the 10 band, like the Pro Q3.
It's like we're taking off this, taking off that, taking off this frequency,
and then it's running through 3 different plugins of EQ. I'm like, no, it's not a whole lot. That's really
not a whole lot.
And then we blended in the fucking sample.
And then what we didn't preface is that all the inboard gear that we're running it through, so like a compressor, a mic preamp, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's it's not ideal, but the thing is, I'm like at the moment, I'm not playing guitar for a band. A lot of it's for bass, and that is pretty simple.
Right?
Because I'm like, although actually with that kind of gets to it, because I'm like I like having a compressor, I like having a drive, I like having the DI. I was
playing bass for a band for a while too, so I got really nerdy into I'm gonna get an SVT, I'm gonna put a Tube Screamer in front of it, I'm gonna get a 610. And then I tried to pick up a 610. I'm just like, that's not going to happen.
Maybe a 410. Those are still heavy.
It's still really heavy. So I'm like, you know what? I just went to Guitar Center and I bought a Fender 200 Rumble, like one of the newer ones.
Yeah.
So just like I could pick it up with one hand. I'm
and
just
then,
all right, this will do.
That's loud enough to hear, and then just go DI or whatever.
Yep, pretty much.
And then so like bass, like I'm not too particular because like I had a whole, it's like, oh, you can. A lot of times too is like bass. They're just like if there's a bass rig just share it a lot of times.
Yeah.
They kind of, which is like same thing. Sometimes people with bass, I'm like, let's fuck it.
Yeah, screw it. It's gonna go DI anyways.
The bands or the sound guy, they still don't care. It's like I can't remember where it was. I don't know if it was Soma back in the day. I didn't even think about it when you were a kid, or like Epicenter or something like that. They used to just have a DI box.
That's true. Yeah.
Plug bass into this. I'm like, okay, cool. You can have your whole bass rig. It's not even going through that. He's just going into bass directly into a DI box.
Right into that PA.
And then he's like, no, and then I plug into your amp and you can hear it. And so you can mess around all the EQ and stuff like that on your amp.
But you're just getting a dry signal.
Doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. I'm like, I want to say it was Soma and all that stuff, because it was like, you would just be like, oh yeah, totally. Okay. And then
right.
Like, they didn't even fucking care. They didn't even care to like go out of your amp or whatever. But,
right.
Yeah.
It's just like, give me that dry signal, boy.
Yeah, it's like whatever effects and stuff that you're doing, don't give a shit.
Does not matter.
Don't give a shit. But, oh man, I guess we're kind of up. Yeah, we're like already got up to an hour.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, Will, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it really just like that.
Boom, done.
But okay, so if people want to check you out, your bands, they want to check you out. We didn't even talk about it. You got into photography too.
That's true. So, we can touch on that for quite a bit.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we'll have to do it another time. But let's plug your photography page. Let's plug all that stuff. Give it to me.
So if you want to follow me on Instagram, just find me at Wil Lopez Music with 1 L. A lot of people get that wrong. Even Duff McKagan was like, 1 L?
1 L?
Okay, yeah.
Like, you lying?
Yeah. So it's Wil Lopez 1 L Music from all my guitar stuff. Wil Lopez Media for all the video and photography, amateur stuff that I do. And then if you want to follow the bands that I'm in, follow Fairplay SD on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Yes, I'm on TikTok.
Oh, there you go.
Oh boy, that's a whole nother beast. And then the Naked Eye, you just look up the Naked Eye Music on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you for tuning into the Tone Jerks podcast. If you like what you hear, you can follow along on social media. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. Just search the Tone Jerks and you'll find it. And then it's also linked in the description. You can join the group. And then we also have Instagram. So at the Tone Jerks, I was like bragging. I'm like, oh, we got 3,000. Yeah. And now it's like, I guess 4,000 is really far away. Yeah. So anyway, I'm still riding that wave. So go follow us on Instagram. And then if you like what you hear, you can help support the show on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. But if you double down for $2 a month, you get an extra episode every week and you get the whole back catalog. I didn't even mention it. Kyle's not here, but he's going to be on the Patreon. So it's kind of like a last minute thing. I was like, oh, hey, Will's going to be here. Do you want us to do the main episode? He's like, go for it. So Kyle's going to be on the Patreon. And, just as a thank you, Kyle will join us and he'll do the Patreon reads. So thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Check out all his bands, links to all that in the description. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So Kyle didn't join us for the main episode. So thanks again to Will for, hanging out. But we wanted to bring Kyle on. We got to phone him in. Got to call a favor.
Yeah.
He's going to be, giving us, some shout outs here. Shout outs.
Some shouties.
Shouties for the shouties. Kyle, you got a list of names over there?
I got it right
People
here.
who support us on the Patreon. Kyle,
yes.
Why don't you give it to
we have Andrew Walsh from Andrew's Alcove, Adam Rohr from the Let 'Em Hear podcast. You done? Abe Newman, Michael Newman.
I gotta be super enthused for everyone.
You kicked me off the main ep, okay, and then now you won't even let me have this.
I know. Well, I did Just Surprise Me, and they have a soundboard for every person.
Oh, really?
Get fucked.
That's pretty good.
They end it. I'm like, later, bitch, get fucked.
Yeah. Dang.
It's pretty good. Anyway.
All right. Nicholas Payson, Nicholas Ogburn, Doug King, Doug Christ from 37 Effects. Also, I got to make a list of this. I just have his name. I don't have anything listed. 37 Effects, Masters of the Cinematic Universe.
You do it from the heart.
Just Surprise Me podcast. That's all for you, Doug. He does a couple of those podcasts with Joe from Like My Pedals, which is the next name on this list. And we also have Will Will Lehue.
And guess what? The next name is Wil Lehue. And the next name is Cole Schneider.
My name is what? My name is who? Wil Lehue.
Fuck.
All right. Yeah.
That's so I had nothing for that. I can't.
Yeah,
what the fuck was that?
That's how good it was.
That means
that's from Eminem, dude.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Slim Shady.
I know. But
okay.
It's where that. Why did you bring that up?
Yeah. My name. Yeah. Okay. All right. I get it. No, I see what you mean now. Jamie Davis.
It's like
Johnny Ray. Jason Fuzzmonger. You gonna let me do this? Let me just do my thing.
Would you let me do my fucking job?
Just shut up, okay?
I don't come over.
Shut up.
Come over to your place of business and fuck you up.
Yeah. Bat out those things out of your mouth.
Bat the dicks out of your mouth.
Yeah. I don't want to say it.
When the first time I heard that, I was like, it was hilarious. Would you let me do my job? I don't come to your work and bat the dicks out of your mouth.
Steve Ralph from 60 Cycle Hum. Colin Smith. Kevin Equits from Equits Guitars. Co Schneider from the Flippin' Flippers podcast. Alvaro Viramontes. Brian from Nutter Guitars. Mel Chibson of Chibson Guitars. And Chibson on Instagram. Sean Arbo from Gun Street Wiring Shop.
Chibson on Instagram have been doing it like funny posts, but they're not related.
Yeah, they are. All right, Sean Fahey.
Don't ruin this for me, you fucking asshole.
Local boy, Sean Fahey.
You still haven't hung out with him. He's got a new band. It's actually really sick.
Yeah. I think I follow him actually now. Mm-hmm. Sean Wright from Lollygagger Effects. Juan Ortiz from Tone Hungry Effects. Mike Oxbig. Hugh G-Rection.
Shit.
What was that? It's a
wipeout.
Zach Hale. Eric Merrow from Elm Effects. Elm.
Yeah.
Elm Effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to put your pinky up when you say it.
Yeah.
Elm Effect.
Scott Hamilton from the Effects Loop podcast. Tim Nowick from Bardic Audio Devices. Jonathan Jaruzik from 12th Hour Devices. Tyler Rhines. He updated the name of his account, was it?
I think Tyler Casey Riffs.
Okay. But let's sure. I'll have to look that up. But this time it's Casey's Riff Room.
Because you haven't changed it, that's why.
No. Yeah.
Shit.
Sorry, Tyler. We'll get you next time, maybe.
If I got room on my hard drive, I'll change it. We're going 21st century now. We got
I have like 4 hard drives now in this thing.
Yeah, you got the fucking computers like up instead of like a hand. I was gonna say handwritten, but hand drawn names.
Yeah, I just type it right now.
They're all like hieroglyphics. How you write it out.
We have Matthew Fenslaw. And we got a new one.
Oh.
We have this is Addison. Yeah, this is Addison C.
Addison C. What up? What up? Thanks for the support. And thank all you for listening.
All of yous guys and gals.
Yeah, the guys and gals out there. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.